We are now going to explain the BRS system as we have developed it in SYSPRO. You open up the program, you will see that you get asked for the bank. You can either browse or you can do a next, usual stuff. You do a browse, it brings up your list of banks. You select the bank you want. Okay, you tab off that or you enter. Here are all your settings, your BRS settings in SYSPRO. In this pane you will see all the unreconciled bank statement transactions. When the first time you come in there won't be any. At the bottom here you will see all your existing unreconciled cash book transactions. If you were to click on one of them, you would actually see the transaction in detail on the right hand side. Okay, the settings in SYSPRO are the settings in the BRS are the most important. You have a look, you have the function validate. Your options are validate and process. When you are in validate mode, no update, physical update happens to the BRS system. It just shows you as if an update was to happen. The process is the one that allows you to physically update the system, reconcile your cash book records, etc. Reconcile from, the options here are all new files and previously unreconciled statements. If you have a look, the new files will be the files that you enter here, whether you reconcile or import, it's looking here. Your previously unreconciled statements are the records that will be in this section here. All will obviously process both. Okay. This show cash book transactions, we'll explain that later. Your reconcile deposit settings, your choices as always are value, value date and reference, and value and date. Most of the time people tend to stick to the value only because your reference is between you and the bank and that's never the same, and dates do differ between the cash book and the physical bank, but that's up to you. Your posting and your year period is the same as it always used to be. You can actually select to change your posting periods. At this stage we're just going to keep it as it is. Okay, your process your masks after your reconcile. If you were running reconcile itself in process mode and you have this ticked on, it will actually go into, these are your masks, it will actually go through all of these after reconciling the records and step through and reconcile based on what you have selected. Okay, you can actually change these records. This allows you to tell the system, look for in that field the narration, which is that one up there, and apply it only to withdrawals. So obviously your deposits will be ignored in this case, and your action to take is to either delete the statement record or to create the cash book record. If you were to select create the cash book record, you would have to enter the GL code and the notation. So these are your actual masks that have been set up by you based on information that you know for a fact will not be reconciled and you want it to be reconciled. Right, this is very important. This is your bank format. This is a list of all the banks that we currently have written. Standard Bank would obviously be, Swift Standard Bank would obviously be the most user-friendly on your side. At the moment we're going to test with FNB. Your file path. What this does is it looks at a file on your folder that SYSPRO needs to have access to, and it has a look at, you put your transactions, you actually put your bank statement transactions into this file, and then BRS will process it from that file. We also have the facility to process just one file at a time. If you were to enter this information, it would process just that file and no other files. That's just if you wanted to do that. Once it has done a process, not validate, a physical process, okay, it actually takes your files and it puts them into a done folder. It renames them and it puts them into a done folder. So they will be removed from the folder that you're working in if you were to run it under process function. If you were to create the cash book, it looks at these general ledger for the cash book and the general ledger notation. So if you have not entered this and you select to create a cash book record, it will complain because it needs the ledger code. This is the ledger code that the actual cash book is going to be posted to. Here are your reports themselves. There's been no change here. We have the unreconciled bank statement records. Some files actually have non-translatable records. You might want to see this, you might not. You can tick it or you can leave it on. Your reconciled cash book records and your unreconciled cash book records from every run. If you were to run it in silent mode, you would have to put an email address because your reports will not be shown on the screen. They will be emailed. If you do not have an email address or the email address is invalid, you will not see the report that comes out of your silent run. The BRS information is just basically running totals of your last batch number used, total withdrawals, total deposits, and total reconciled records. These are all record based. All right, let's give this a bash. So currently you will see we're in validate mode, so you are not able to see anything, okay? It's all been grayed out because in validate mode, nothing is updatable, okay? So we're going to put this into process mode so we can see some records. Right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to import just one file. I'm just going to select one of the files. It's going to be the statement 1, okay? And I'm going to import it into my system. Now, what import does is it just physically takes the file that you've selected and it puts it into the unreconciled. Okay, that's all it does. So we're going to do that now so you can see that we've got some records. Sorry, the screen has moved away. Right. There we have the stats. We've imported one statement, all the records, all good. Okay. If you were to run a print, you would see here are your records. Okay, this shows you your statements. You will see these records here are your non-translatable records with the X's. There's all your statement rejections, and we go through all the statement rejections. We don't currently have records that are being reconciled, so you won't see an example of that. Let's just go to the end. Okay. There's your statement rejections, okay? I mean, this is just import. Sorry, these were just imported. We haven't validated anything. We've just imported the records. You will now see that you have 138 records sitting in your unreconciled bank statement transactions. Now to explain this one, the show the cash matching cash book transaction, your option is no or yes. By default it's set to no. So if I was to highlight that line or highlight that line, you'll see nothing happens. If I was to set this to yes and I was to highlight that line, it would try and find a matching cash book transaction for a deposit for that amount. Okay, so that's just a nice to have. If you were to select, let's show all the bottom buttons, you were to select this side, even though this is set to yes, you still see all your transactions at the bottom, because once you have selected it, there's things you can do. That you can reconcile records, so you would select to and reconcile. Okay, so this button here just allows you to play around with the records so that you can see records at the bottom. Right, so these are all your unreconciled cash book records that you've just brought into the system, and here is your unreconciled cash books. Now what you have here is you can actually reconcile from, because now you've imported these records, you can reconcile from just the previously unreconciled statements, okay, and you would run reconcile. I know for a fact nothing will happen, but let's show you. Right, it's importing the records. My screen keeps disappearing. There's your totals of what it's tried to reconcile. Here you have your statement rejections like you had before, okay, and then you have your unreconciled cash book. If anything was to be reconciled, you would also receive that. You will also see now that this is for batch 22, okay, sequence number 1. That is this particular update. That's the batch number that was created, okay. I'll show you later how to run reports outside of the system. Right, you can also take a transaction, so there is my transaction, and I can create a cash book record. Now, you will see that it will be removed from the unreconciled, but it will not appear in your unreconciled cash book transactions because it will have been reconciled. So if I was to do cash book, it tells me that it is created. It's gone to the other screen again. It shows me that it has created. One record has been selected and it has been created, right? It also disappears from your unreconciled, does not appear on this side, but if you were to look in your cash book, you will see that transaction is actually now in your cash book. So it's no longer on your unreconciled bank statements, and it is being reconciled in your cash book. If you were to click on the masks, that would process the masks that you have, and it would look through all of these unreconciled records, find a mask, a match based on what your selection was, and it would create reconciled cash book records. Again, you would not see them down the bottom here. All right. Obviously, your select, deselect, and delete, you are able to manipulate this as much as you want. All right. So you can import and you can reconcile and you can maintain the masks. If you were to put this on validate, as I said before, you have got no update. You are still able to import. You are still able to import all your records. And you would see, let's just run a reconcile. No, the file doesn't exist. Because if you have a look, because we ran a process, that file, which was called statement 1, got put into the done folder, okay, and renamed. So that file doesn't exist. You would have to get rid of that file, and you would have to run it just from inside there. You'll see we have the statement 2 sitting in there. Right. So now we're going to, we're sitting on validate, and we're going to reconcile. And it's going to show you what it would do as if you were reconciling, but nothing has actually happened. You'll see it says validate only. You still have the unreconciled. And if you come back in here, nothing has changed because you're running on validate. So what you have to do is you have to set all these details that you see on this screen up initially. If you want to run the silent process, you would save those. If you were to run the silent process, you would have to run it from file run in SYSPRO, because it's not something we're putting on the menu. You would have to say file run, and you would enter BRS PRS, and that will run this program silently. If there are any problems or any errors, you will not see them, okay, because they will just be written to the audit report. Here are your reports. You remember that one batch we ran, it was 22. Sorry, the screen has moved away. It's 22. You can enter the batch number or you can browse, up to you. Let's go on to the other screen. There's your browse of all your existing batches, but we know it was 22. 22. And you can print the report. So this is a reprint of the report that of the batch you processed within. You'll see there's 2201. Okay, that is how you run the report outside. You also have the audit report. Go on to the other screen. Here's your audit report. You obviously have the usual parameters. You have to enter your bank. Okay, and we're going to print the audit report. Now, if there were any errors when you're running it in silent mode, you would actually see it on this report. You can also run the silent mode outside of SYSPRO using import. Okay, we'll explain that in the email. Here we can set up our masks. You don't have to be in the reconcile. You can actually maintain your masks normally from SYSPRO. Obviously you would have the licensing and the reconcile. I'm now going to show you in the BRS system how to reconcile unreconciled bank statement transactions against your cash book, your unreconciled cash book. In this case we don't have an example of amounts that match, but I will show you the process. Right, so now you have a withdrawal of 52,000 and you have a withdrawal of 14,000. I realize they're not the same, so we're not going to get too excited, but I'm going to reconcile these. So in theory, I want it to be removed from my unreconciled bank statement transactions, and I want the existing cash book record to be reconciled. We know the amounts don't match, so you're going to get this amazing screen, but we're just, for this process, going to say go for it, and we're going to say yes. And you will see your amount has disappeared from that side. So has the transaction disappeared from the actual cash book. It is now a reconciled record. So you can manually go through these records yourselves, and you can actually play with them and do what you want to do with them. Obviously the onus is on you as far as balancing your account at the end of the day goes. So your masks and your cash book, as well as your reconcile, allow you to manipulate this information in and out of the cash book as you see fit.